Welcome back to another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son, George. I was my mother's caregiver after she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Unfortunately, she passed on 1/1/2020, but we started together for Sharon.com in her memory. Today's guest is someone, whether I'm having medical issues or not, who really inspires me to just jump out of my chair while we're talking and run. And I'm just like, it's incredible what he's accomplished and his journey. And he's been, I consider a friend because we've known each other now. It's amazing. A year. It goes so quickly. I feel like I just heard about you and your inspiring work recently. So I just want to welcome Joe to the show. And again, I've been so excited to have you here. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, thank you for that introduction, George, and I'm thrilled to get a chance to be part of your effort to spread awareness and to hopefully have other people not have to go through what you have had to go through with your mom.
I
Um,
appreciate it.
so my history with Parkinson's starts in 2018. I was 57 when I got my diagnosis, and what uh, I learned from my diagnosing physician was that the best therapy for Parkinson's was exercise. And so I said, cool, I'm in.
Mhm.
And although I've always exercised, I've been a runner my whole life and have done various sports, I decided to double down on running. And other thing I did is I retired. Um, another good thing another way to deal with Parkinson's is to eliminate stress from your life. Retiring helped me do that. I started running more. Um, I ran my first marathon almost 2 years after my diagnosis. And since then, I've now run 25 marathons. I and that's helped on a number of fronts. Certainly the exercise, that's all been very good. But I've met a lot of people, both other runners, other athletes with Parkinson's, and just runners in general. It's a wonderful community. It's a great way to maintain positivity in the face of this disease. And the running has helped me slow down the progression. I have mm, basically not had any significant progression of symptoms since my diagnosis now 6 years ago. And I attribute that a lot to my exercise regime. Some of the things that I've done, you see some of the medals in the back behind me. One of the things that I really enjoyed doing is running in the World Marathon Majors. The World Marathon Majors are annual events that take place in the countries around the world, including Tokyo, Boston, London, Berlin, Chicago, and New York City. And shortly after I ran my first marathon, I decided, okay, I wanted another goal besides running the marathon. I decided I would try to run all of those marathons in a single year. Not many people have done that, had not done that at that point. And so I said, okay, let's give that a shot. Uh, Turned out I made that goal in 2019. And the year I chose to do that was going to be 2021, which was the year after the pandemic.
Oh, okay.
And the pandemic screwed everything up. And basically, those marathons, which normally start in March with Tokyo and in November with New York City, for that 1 year only, 2021, they were all compressed into a 6-week schedule in in the fall, including Boston and Chicago, which were scheduled on consecutive days. So at first I thought, okay, I'm not going to make this work. And then I thought, well, why not? And so I went ahead and I did that. I did all 6 of the marathons in that 6 week period. And only one other person in the world has run them all in that 6 week period, and that was retired professional runner Shalane Flanagan. And And that was an extraordinary experience. As I said, I met a lot of people. I was helped greatly by the Michael J. Fox Foundation. Their grassroots organization, Team Fox, which allowed me to run 3 of those 6 marathons as a member of Team Fox, so it got me entry into them. I wrote a book about that effort, won a few awards with it. All the proceeds from that book I donate to the Michael J. Fox Foundation. And then I still had this goal of running all 6 in a single calendar year, because those during that 2021 campaign, Tokyo bailed. So instead of Tokyo, I ran a virtual run in Seattle, in my hometown. So in 2023, I went ahead and I finally did get all 6 of those in a single year. You see the medals behind me; those are from that race. And then in 2024, a very wonderful thing happened in Boston. They opened up a new para athlete division that included Parkinson's disease. And for the first time only, uh, they had that division, and there were several of us found out about it. Several Parkinson's athletes went and ran in it. And I was fortunate enough to be the champion, the male champion for that division for the first time around. Granted, I was the only one in that division, but still, it was a wonderful experience. And a lot of this, I have to say, that this change towards marathons, the people that I met and whatnot, well, I have to thank Parkinson's to a large extent for opening up those doors to me and to change my life in a way such that I contribute to Parkinson's research by raising money through these endurance events with Team Fox. And I also can share my experience with exercise and its ability to slow the progression of the disease to others who are newly diagnosed with the disease. And I can give them hope for how they too can thrive despite having this disease.
Thanks. Some amazing accomplishments for someone who I considered I myself as a runner before all my kind of surgeries and injuries. 5Ks, we did like 20 of them, and I can't even. I in my brain, I was like, let's do a marathon. Like, forget. My wife even signed up for one on behalf of the Parkinson's Foundation. Like they're running, and just it was so you had to get up just at 5 a.m. So that
Oh,
was some of the things that, and we watch. We're big Survivor and Amazing Race fans, but think we'll stick to watching everyone else like you do them, but that's incredible.
well, you mentioned your wife. I imagine she's a professional like yourself. Um, Being retired makes
Yeah.
all the difference. I mean, the folks that run marathons, who have a life
Mhm.
with a career, children, all of that is behind me now. So I
Yeah.
have a lot of time. I can take a nap after a hard run, and that's huge. So hats off to anybody who's able to do that when there's so many other competing demands in their lives.
So you've accomplished so many tough challenges. So what's next since you've already kind of broken barriers and became the champion in my mind? I always enjoy, again, we met through instant message, through Instagram, at least I believe, and just following you and seeing these amazing journeys. It makes me feel like I'm a little bit a part of it. So I'll have to take some credit for your wins. But
Sure.
I just so now like how did obviously it helps with progression, and everyone listening out there, we're going to share in a minute Joe's website. See, I love the name of some of the stories. As a police officer, attorney, and PhD, I love the name Running Under the Influence of Parkinson's, because it's not obviously it's more of the comedic side. But actually, I'll share that as you can tell me a little bit, maybe what's in your mind as to what the next big, in a way, challenge that's going to come for you.
Oh well, I definitely want to get back to Boston, and I'll do that as now a returning champion, and which will be a treat in itself. But right now, I like to think of all of these running challenges that I've set in hindsight, I think of them as what we call type 2 fun. And for those who are curious about that, type 1 fun is fun. Your conventional things, the things that you like to do. Type 2 fun is kind of the fun that is fun only after you've completed it. It's not so much fun while you're doing it, but the sense you have upon looking back on it, the accomplishment uh, that it created for you, and the joy that you have in having set yourself something that was hard to do and you accomplished it, is the basis of type 2 fun. And it is, in my view, what is extremely important for any Parkinson's patient to strive for, because things are difficult for us. Everything's difficult. Some folks have difficulty walking. I personally don't have as much of that, but I feel for the people who do. But it's important for all of us to set some type of goal that is difficult to achieve, and then celebrate it when you have achieved it, or celebrate it even in the failure of having attempted that sort of thing. Because positivity in one's life is extremely important for getting through Parkinson's. Um, the basis of the disease is that you're short of dopamine. And dopamine is a neurotransmitter that helps in all movement activities, but it also influences your mood and mental outlook. A lot of people with Parkinson's suffer from depression and other mood-related issues. It's important to recognize that, and don't let that take hold in you and the definition of yourself. So to get back to your question, I've set up this new campaign for the summer. The Michael J. Fox Foundation has started a summer series of endurance, kind of self-created endurance events that is being met with a 3-to-1 dollar for dollar, or $3 for every $1 donation for whatever you're able to raise. And I've called my little adventure a Parky's exploration of type 2 fun. So I'm setting up my own little challenges. The next one starts next week. It's called the 4x4x48 challenge, where you run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours for a total of 48 miles in 2 days. And that means getting up at all times of the day and running out, do your 4 miles and come back. That's my first one. The second one is a 50-mile run that I'm going to do in segments over the course of about 12 hours. And the third one is it's a run around Lake Washington, which is up near here in Seattle. It's about a 50-mile loop. And I'll do that 2 weeks after that second one. So it's 3 essentially 50-mile activities, none of which I've ever done before. I've never gotten, marathon distance is about my limit so far, but I'm going to be doing something like twice that much, and let's see how it goes. It's I think definitely going to be type 2 fun, which means it's not going to be enjoyable while I do it. I'm hoping it doesn't turn into type 3 fun, which is the kind of fun which seemed like a good idea at the time, but turned into something that is potentially life-threatening.
Oh.
And I don't want it to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that this exploration stays in type 2 land.
We'll be cheering you along from South Florida and throughout the world. Hopefully this will be out there and everyone also can share it and also cheer you on. And also, you're mentioning some incredible, important tips, but also everyone should be aware, in my own view, that running also helps with the mental health, because I could tell you now I've been stuck this summer, as you know, a little bit with different multiple surgeries, just no luck. Hopefully I'll come out of it soon, but I haven't been able to exercise or run, and like it's a lot about endorphins, and I'm not as a medical doctor. I only play one on TV. But you know, it's incredible. I've never done drugs in my life. Never done it, never wanted to, but I feel like running's a drug for me. And I just have this feeling like you forget the world for that time. You forget your problems, like you know, you forget everything, and you focus on the goal. But it just and you're sweating, feeling good, and afterwards you might be punished a little. But every time I'm finished, I'm ready to go back. Unfortunately, with all my issues, I'm praying just to be able to do a mile again every day. But it's just incredible. For now, today with technology, we got this cool treadmill that actually you can run. That like and you're actually doing it, but I can run in the snow and all in Central Park, and it's pretty cool because you need that because it gets lonely on a treadmill. So everyone out there, if you can get it, they have a lot of equipment where you don't have to be out there. But it's cool to follow along with Joe and kind of pretend you're running by his side. I always wanted a partner. My wife's amazing at running, but I always wished I could have a partner like you, but I wouldn't even be able to keep up with it.
Well, I'm hoping you get back out there.
Thank you.
I
I
know
appreciate it.
you're working very hard at doing that. So I trust that you will eventually get back out there and enjoy all of the rewards of it again.
Thanks. Yeah, I want to thank you too. If everyone's watching with us, please do and share this to support Joe. He was incredible enough before we even got to know each other to do an interview through the email togetherforsharon.com. Click interviews, and then you can find much, much more in depth with Joe since we can't get into the real deep. But I do want to show a picture here of his book. We'll have to add that too to our website under books if you have time after. That is a lot of information. The most important is how to also support Joe, donations, and they go to some incredible organizations as we donate. All my book, we donate everything to all the organizations. Haven't done one. We don't do this for the money. Most importantly, please go to before I go to that one. I love that one. But Joe's got a run.medium.com, and here you'll see a lot more in depth. Maybe you could talk a moment about your blog and all the information here.
Oh yeah, sure. So my blog started out when I did that marathon challenge, the World Marathon Majors in 2021, and I decided that I was going to, in fact, I that was when I actually came out to the world with my diagnosis. I had told a few of my family members and some close friends, but my broader community of people who knew me didn't know about that. So I sent that out and I said, okay, I have Parkinson's disease. I'm going to do this challenge, work the sixth marathon, the World Marathon Majors in the fall. And to keep you abreast of how it's going, I'm going to write a weekly blog that goes through my preparation, my training, and then ends up with a travel log of the recaps of all of the marathons as I did them. And then since that time, got such a good response to my writing about this, and people were actually surprisingly knew that when my next post would come out, and they were waiting for that next story to keep updated. You know, sometimes people were commenting on within a few minutes of my having posted this, and it was a real it was one of these other positive uh, outcomes of my having the disease. I eventually wrote a version of this blog in the book that George has shown. And then I continued to write stuff. So as I continued to run marathons, or I have any sort of running or Parkinson's or combination story in me that I come across, I will post that to the blog. And I've had, modest success with people reading it. I mean, it's never been the kind of thing that's gone viral, but it's rewarding when you write something and people say, "Oh yeah, I get it. This was really good," and they enjoy it. And again, it's one of those things that is therapeutic for someone with Parkinson's. Uh, it's kind of having your friends and family and even random people know about you and know about what you're writing, uh, it stimulates the production of dopamine that you get from the sources in your body and in your brain that are not affected by Parkinson's. And so I truly enjoy that.
Yeah, I think you're inspiring a lot of people. Sometimes you might not realize it, but you are. And I think the best key to awareness is working together. And I'll make sure the world also knows about what you're doing. It's also very unique. I've interviewed over 800 people, as you know, one was you. And I don't see many marathon runners with Parkinson's. So that's why when I met you or heard about you or saw your story, I thought, it kind of hits me, like boom. And it's like, wow, everyone, I shouldn't be the only one to know about this. The whole world has to. So I'm really, again, grateful for your time and your friendship. Here, everyone, if you go to the Michael J. Fox Foundation, one of our organizations we love to support, they're a big backer of Joe, and they did a story here on him. You can also find that on the michaeljfox.org website. So there's a lot too, and I love this. I have some funny. Mine are all like kind of 5K where they just hand it to you even if you don't finish. That's a big. These must mean a lot more.
Oh,
Well,
I will mention though, you mentioned one thing, and I mentioned that I was the champion of this inaugural division at the Boston Marathon. I've taken it upon myself to recruit others to take that laurel wreath from me next year,
right.
and I do run across many people who are runners with Parkinson's, and collectively, we're all trying to get many more of them to run in the Boston Marathon in this para athlete division because we want it to be successful. If I'm the only one doing it, it's not going to be a successful routine. So, any of your listeners out there, you have Parkinson's, you run, get in touch with me. I'll show you how you can enter this division and be part of it because it's wonderful that Boston is doing this for people, and we want it to be successful and grow.
I love that, and it's great to get people engaged, and also the ability to do it with you, and also in their towns. Someday we have to figure out. It's a new concept I've been thinking, but taking the show on the virtual road, I'd love to kind of go to one of your runs. I don't know how we would do that. It'd have to be like a loved one there, but I would love to kind of zoom in even for 10 minutes while you're about to start and cover it and talk to you. Like they could interview. That's a new thing that I'm trying to look into, but maybe that because that would be fun, like just to show everyone live there what's happening and what you go through, even preparing. Maybe we can talk too about that because I think that would be so exciting.
Sure,
So
absolutely.
now we shift a little to more about you because that's the most important thing to me is you and all that you do. Can you list 3 words that describe who you are?
Um,
Everyone loves that one.
that's a tricky one.
You are allowed to pass and come back if
Uh, well, okay, I'm a nerd.
you.
Um, I have an engineering background and I like to think about data and how data and science influences a lot of things. But my background in engineering and the nerdiness of it all has helped me be my own advocate for Parkinson's. I read a lot of papers. I read a lot of papers about running. I read a lot of papers about Parkinson's. And I've noticed this overlap between Parkinson's and running and how so many of the things that one would do to become a better runner are actually perfectly therapeutic for Parkinson's. That synergy is astounding, and only I think a few people have really caught on to that. And you showed one article that I wrote in my blog, and I call it "Parallel Universes: Parkinson's and Running." That's how I get off. That's one way I think about it. I'm also a fledgling cook. I love to. Well, one of the things that when we retired, my wife and I offered to, since she had been doing all of the cooking for the 20 years that we were raising our children, I said, okay, you get a break. I'll do the cooking. I'll do the shopping for groceries. I'll take care of all of that. So I've gotten better at making meals and whatnot, but my signature accomplishment turns out to be cookies. I can make very good cookies. In fact, I'm in some circles somewhat legendary for bringing cookies to events, when I meet people, when I go on races, I bring them along and share them with people. It's who doesn't like a cookie that's well made, and it's a wonderful icebreaker to just start a conversation with people. Number
You need to call it Joe's Cookies and have little medals like cookies, like with of each race that you've done, and then that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, well, that's an idea. And number three, what else am I? I guess I think of myself more as a writer nowadays than I ever have, because this blog that I've done, like have already mentioned, it's really opened up uh, an opportunity to be creative. And again, creativity is another wonderful thing as a therapy for Parkinson's. Basically, it whether it's Parkinson's, growing old, whatever, you want to be exercising, and you want to be exercising your ability for creativity, because you want to keep all of those neural pathways, whether they're associated with cognitive thought or movement. You want to keep exercising them to make sure that they stay in top shape. And so, writing a blog, writing books, uh, is a new thing that I've always thought of myself as somewhat of a writer. I've always been able to write memos well, or technical reports, but now it's more about reporting on what I see, and making more sense out of it in terms of life, and how to thrive and enjoy yourself in a positive way.
Thanks. I have one area, I always love this question. I always say that, but it's true. I was a caregiver, so I'm wondering during your times of struggle, I imagine I know the answer, but maybe you could tell us who really is your comfort or in your times of struggle behind the scenes. And if anyone's listening who are caregivers, do you have any tips also for them?
Well, unfortunately, I guess I have to say that I'm kind of a loner about these things. I am my own advocate. I haven't gotten to the point where I've needed a lot of care. Um, However, there are so many people out there that I see who are giving care to people whose struggles are much greater than anything that I go through. And again, my hat's off to them. And I would say it's a little broader than that. By being in this para athlete division for the first time ever, I did that in Boston. Not only did I see other people with Parkinson's, but I saw people with fantastic struggles they had to go through, people without limbs, people who couldn't see. And I met some extraordinary people, and it always comes down to that they don't accept limits. But by not accepting limits, like for example, I met this one gentleman who's blind, and he's recently done a Ironman triathlon. So he can't see when he's swimming, and he can't see when he's biking and running. And he wouldn't be able to manage if it wasn't for the guide runners, the guide athletes that go along with them. I mean, that's a caregiver
Yeah.
in the moment of extreme exercise. And these people are going along and enabling the dreams and the goals of these seriously impaired athletes who are not recognizing their limits. It's an inspiring story all around. And I was so fortunate just to be able to meet some of these people and talk to them. And it was I'm always in awe of people who struggle with situations far beyond anything that I had to deal with, and yet they're thriving extraordinarily.
That's why my main point to everyone is that you're never alone, and there's always someone out there. Reach out to someone, look at the resources, follow Joe, look at togetherforsharon.com. There's so many things out there. Unfortunately, just people, I think a lot of them aren't aware. That's why we do what we do. Thank you. Is there something, if you look back 10 years ago, that you might have done differently? Or are you okay with the path that you've kind of taken?
I'm definitely okay with the path that I've taken since my diagnosis, but you're talking about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, uh, I wish I knew more about Parkinson's disease back then. And it's astounding to me that there's no very good early detection method in all the medical community. If it was diabetes, heart disease, or something, you go see your doctor. They put you through a series of tests. In fact, they'll do it anyway once you pass a certain age, just to make sure that if you have any of these indicative symptoms, they're going to get right on it, and so you can be healthy. If there was any, for me, I was originally diagnosed, maybe it was a little more than 10 years ago, with depression, because depression is one of those things with Parkinson's. I wish I had known that at that point. I wish my doctors knew that at that point, that maybe it isn't some innate depression. Maybe it's related to some other neurological condition. So it would have, if I had anything that I would do differently at that time, I would be more aware of this, because with this progressive disease, the sooner you get on top of it and start doing your exercise, um, the slower you can make the progression, and you can get to the point where you may never ever feel the symptoms if you do enough exercise at the right point. Every year, you're losing a big chunk of those neurons that are governing so much of your physical capabilities and your mental capabilities. Uh, yeah, so the short answer is I would have known more about what my future lies, and get on top of it right then.
Thanks for sharing that. Here's another big question. That's I have a drum roll if I had one. If you were asked to write a script to a movie about your life story, what would you call it? Has to have something to do with running. I know the marathon running.
No, I think those titles have been
Taken.
taken. It might be something along the lines of on the nature of miracles,
Oh,
or something where I feel like there's miracles going on in my life all the time. Like, how did these things happen?
yeah.
And it just came down to, for me, saying yes to things that I would not normally have done. And Parkinson's kind of gave me that perspective of like, okay, dude, so
Mhm.
you got this. So what are you waiting for? Get on with it.
Yeah.
And so if I were to write a story of my life, it would be like uh, an exploration of where I think that comes from. And really, it comes from a desire to say yes, to put yourself out there, instead of saying, "Oh no, I don't think I can do that sort of thing." Like, give it a shot.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going to happen? And for the most part, I've found that it's been positive results that I could never have anticipated. This surprised me all the time, but I feel in a way the Parkinson's has been a blessing for that kind of outcome.
Thanks. And if you could leave the Parkinson's community today with some words of encouragement, what would they be? Although you've already encouraged me, I just wish I physically could go. I would go running right now after we leave. But maybe you could leave a few final words to them. And also, how could everyone out there listening reach out to you or contact you if they want to not even train for just a marathon, just to kind of casually run, but just to get out there and do something.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be running. There's lots of things that you can do, but I think I've sort of touched upon a few of the words of advice. But first of all, be your own advocate. And I know that you've had several people on in your podcast where people have described how hard it was for them to get a diagnosis. There's misinformation out there. There's bad advice, even amongst very intelligent, capable physicians.
Mhm.
So you need to be your own advocate by studying up on your condition and understand what is true about the condition, what are myths, so that you can dispel bad advice. Secondly, I'd say positivity is key. As I've touched on that before, I try to eliminate certain words and feelings from my life. I don't like to use the word hate. I don't like to say, oh, I hate it when that happens or something like that, because that's a really slippery slope. You don't want to get those emotions at all embedded in your mind. Stay positive, stay light. It makes a big difference in dealing with everything. And then, of course, exercise. Get out there, find something that you like to do. It's important to get at least 150 minutes a week of exercise that raises your heart rate. That's what has been proven medically, scientifically, as the only therapy for that is working for Parkinson's. But they've also found that there's no limit. It's not like you get to 150 minutes and that's the maximum amount of slowing of progression that you get. The more exercise you get, the better it is. The more likely it is that you can stop the progression in its tracks. As far as reaching out to me, I have a contact page on my website, which you've already mentioned. My website is joesgottarun.com. And I'm happy to speak to anybody newly diagnosed or not, just about my experiences, what my personal views about how one should deal with Parkinson's and some of the scientific aspects of the disease or the medical aspects of the disease. And I'm happy to speak to one-on-one with either patients or their caregivers or both.
Thank you. I have a little message for you and everyone listening. As always, we love you, we support you, we care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I, along with Joe, will advocate for you, and together our voices are so much stronger. I always say I'm just getting started because, like with when I met you or saw your journey in the marathon, that really got me to want to jump out of my bed no matter what and go running. So I just wanted to thank you for your friendship, your time, and your inspiration. I'm hoping that we could share this, but also everyone listening also share it. There's somebody out there right now kind of struggling, feeling alone, but I feel that if they learn about you and your journey, they'll jump up like I did and start moving. So I really, again, just want to thank you, Joe, for your friendship and coming on today. It means the world to me.
Thank you, George. I appreciate you saying all that. And once again, I'm astounded at the amount of work that you put in for the community and for people who are suffering. And bless you for all that work.
Thanks. I wish I could say I would stand. Well, I do stand by you side to side through this all, except when you start running the marathon. Then I'll be watching side by side. I don't know if I could keep up with you, but it's
Well,
incredible story, journey, and I'm grateful to again be able to not just share it, but hopefully someday live it with you.
well, if not a marathon, then a 5K.
That's
You'll get
perfect.
back there.
Thanks. Well, thank you, Joe, and thank you everyone listening. Please again support Joe, reach out to him and the Michael J. Fox Foundation. They're all doing such incredible things. This has been another episode of Q&A with Sharon, son George, but the conversation doesn't end here. We have so much more to come, and just this can't stop till we find a cure for Parkinson's disease. So we all send our love, support, and Sharon, son George, just saying see you very soon, not goodbye, because we have so much more work to do together. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.